Hello?
Hi, Michael.
Can you guys hear me?
Hey, Mike.
Yes,
I can hear you. Hey, good afternoon.
Who else? Yeah. No, there's Tim.
There's
Hi,
Tim.
Tim.
Hello.
The man in the hot seat.
Oh boy.
No, nobody said that.
Well, let me rephrase that. The man that's going to answer more questions than me. Well, that may not be true either, I guess.
There may be. We've got a couple more people coming, I think. Thank you, Scott.
Hey, Judith, who are we missing so far?
Say it again.
Who are we missing so far?
We're missing David and Mike. Michael,
Okay.
sorry. I don't know, let me look at my list. Okay, we'll give them another minute, but then we'll start. And they can join us when they get here, I guess. Huh. I'm just gonna let them know we're starting.
Tim, is Shane Manning in the practice or is he retired?
He retired middle of last year sometime, or middle of this year.
I see.
He's doing his own little side gig in retirement now.
It looks like Michael's coming on. Hi, Michael. Okay, so we're waiting for David Roach, but let's go ahead maybe and get started. And I'm gonna suggest I'm gonna suggest that we wanted to go kind of line by line, that we start with, one of the buildings, then we go to the other building. And that we can just start maybe with THP since Tim, we haven't had much chance to talk to you. And I just wanted to say, I just wanted to be clear that nobody is disrespecting our consultants if they are asking questions, have other experiences or ideas. So I hope you guys don't take it that way.
I do not feel disrespected. It's
Okay.
a good, reasonable, curious debate. That's to be expected.
Okay.
There's always multiple ways to approach a problem, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Kind of my thought as well. All right, so why don't we start with THP? And the thought was, and you might want to pull out your paper. Why don't we start with the grade school, Mills Lawn Elementary, around this way, and kind of just go down the list. Let me get my so the first thing you got there is the concrete repairs. Do you want to describe ever just so briefly what you saw? I know you said in general you thought the brick was in pretty good shape, or at least that's what I heard, but maybe that isn't what you said. And then we'll just, if you want to, Tim, if you want to just say a little bit about each ABC, etc., kind of what you saw, then we can jump in if there's any questions.
Sure. I'm gonna pull up a second document here real quick.
And one thing on all of these that, to the right, there's the first 12 months, the 12 to 36 months, the 36 to 60 months. And I guess I'm going to be wanting to know on each of the ones that have 36 to 60 months, what is involved in that last amount of money? What are we not doing in the what is not included in the foundational renovation plan that does include the first two columns, but not that last column? So that'll be a general question that I'll have.
I would just clarify, Tim, I put in the criticality of the repairs and broke it into one, immediate mean within the next 12 months, intermediate mean 12 to 36 months, and then after 36 months. That was mine, not his. He's obviously welcome to say, no, Mike, that should be more critical or less critical. And just as a general rule, those things that I thought would end up in a construction project, that should end up in a construction project that I considered not critical, but something that had to happen, I put those on the 36-month or longer, assuming that at some point in the near future, you're going to do some kind of construction project, even if it's just a minimum, and that those would go into that project as opposed to becoming kind of emergencies. So that's how I broke it up. I'm open to Tim correcting any of that.
Okay. Tim, do you have the spreadsheet in front of you?
I do not have the final one that Michael sent to you guys. I should probably have that here. Sure. Can you shoot me a copy of that, Michael?
I cannot. I'm on my iPad and I'm in Florida. My computer's in Cincinnati because it was broken. I had to go to the shop. So if someone can send that to me.
Let me see if is somebody else better at this than I am?
might be able to.
I can probably do it. It's just going to take me a minute to find it, I think.
Tim, while we're working on this, just on the very first item, which is concrete repairs to foundation, you have equal amounts of effort going into the newest part of the building as the oldest part of the building. Does our 2002 additions already have problems with the foundations?
May I jump in just to say, Tim, I put the link to the document in the chat here. If you go there, you'll see a list of documents, and the one that I think we're going to be discussing here is the one called THB dash 211202. Do you see that?
Downloading it here.
Okay.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Okay, so yeah, Michael did the breaking out by years to answer the questions. So those dollars in those three columns are, I'll say arbitrary at this point, just for budgetary purposes. But there's some repairs that are more important. Some repairs that are more important than others. So we can tackle a third of that in the first term, of the second, third, and then move to the final ones down the line.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Scott,
Yeah,
David did not get a link. Are you able to send him one?
it's in the chat. If he opens the chat window,
I don't
No,
think he got-
Scott, I don't think that he got the link to
He
the
didn't get
meeting.
the original link to the meeting, he said.
I'll take care of it, Judith.
oh, sure.
Okay, okay, you're gonna get it? Thank you.
So
It will be coming to you.
so the dollars that are allocated to the 52 building, 57, and the 2022 aren't necessarily prioritized by the years of the repairs. It's just,
Well, Tim, if you would like to look at that and fix it where you think it belongs, that's, I will not be offended. I took what I thought was a reasonable amount of money and put it into each bucket without getting down to the square yard of concrete or the square yard or square foot of brick, and said, well, there's going to be repairs in this project in this building. What's a reasonable amount of money to put aside that needs to be done right away, and put that in a spot where this is my recommendation is you now to get completely crispy, we'd have to have a list of the very specific repairs that need to be made and a estimate on how much each repair would cost. And that would go out in an RFP or a scope of work for someone to bid on. We can do that. That's not part of the study. That was, generally we're trying to break out what we think your costs are going to be. Certainly, Tim, you could do a better job of getting that more crispy than I am.
well, and it's really hard to give a definite dollar for each of these line items,
Right,
because
you have to break it. Right.
there's so many, and it would really depend on the budget. If Yellow Springs said we have $100,000 this year, I would be able to much more easily identify
Prioritize.
the $100,000 that should be done first. So saying 4750 in concrete repairs should be done for the classroom media center first. This is all theoretically hypothetical, because that may not be how much money we get. So it may be prudent to move that item to the next time we
Right.
get money. So I don't
Tim,
even know.
what's the nature of these repairs? Is it spalled concrete?
It's mostly spalled concrete, cracks in the foundation wall, There was a couple columns, steel columns that had some embeds in the corner that were corroded.
So some of the paving's uneven. And it's created trippers where you had a section of concrete that's literally an inch or more higher than the other. And in some cases you can lift that concrete, generally you can't. So there's, in my view, some of the paving's got to be literally peeled out, jacked up, peeled out, and then re-poured.
Aren't we talking about the foundation?
Yeah, this is just
Well,
foundation.
We're
I
talking
didn't,
about foundation, sorry.
yeah, I didn't put dollars in for site
Paving.
work or
Okay,
parking lots or. any of
pardon
that.
me, foundation.
So is
Yeah,
there money in there for epoxy injection, and what about the rusted columns? That's all figured in or what?
Yeah, that's figured into the overall estimate number.
Okay.
Is there anything else on the concrete? Should we go on to masonry?
I do have one question about it.
Okay,
Did you say, Tim, that you did not include any of the outdoor areas? So no pavement and none of the patios around? Is that what you said?
Yeah, if it wasn't structural, I didn't include it because that's typically the landscaper or the architect would handle that kind of scope change. If there's something specific like a settlement issue with the sidewalk, we could look into that too. But
Yeah, so something that I brought up a couple of weeks ago was about an existing patio on the outside of the kindergarten classes where there are significant cracks in the concrete slab there. And I was wondering if that had been included in that spreadsheet.
that is not, because it wouldn't affect the operation of the building if we just got rid of that. I mean, it's not.
Well, Tim,
Okay.
we could give you a square footage of what needs to be replaced there. And I guess that could be added.
Sure, yeah, I
Just
could
it's
easily,
just a slab on grade.
yeah.
And demolition.
And I was just going to ask too, is that there's no, I'm thinking about accessibility there, and there's a step up to the patio and then a step up into the building. And so if it was to be repairs there, probably there should be some accessibility considered to make it a ramp. There's a ramp right now that is an aluminum one, I think. Anyway, just to say that it should, if that matters in terms of a pricing. Yeah.
Yeah, that would. Yeah. There's a fine line here between fixing what you have and improving things, and then designing them. And how expensive do you want them? Do you want a wood ramp or do you want a concrete ramp? And,
It is in the section.
right,
a lot of moving targets.
right.
I'd like to ask again, starting with A, concrete repairs to foundation. Are those numbers, the 225, 112, and 113 lineal feet of foundation?
Those are square footage.
No, I know the unit, all right, but how are you doing square footage of foundation?
Just surface area of the exposed.
Surface area of the exposed, okay. And you're telling me that this, and so that's all the surface area that's exposed? Or just what needs repairs?
That's what needs to be repaired. Or what
Well,
we're budgeting for repairs. I didn't go through and count. There's 112 here and 113 here, or there's I didn't get that far into it on quantities.
Okay, because one of the things we're concerned about is whether the pricing here is the worst case scenario, or it's as accurate as can be about what needs to be done, or it's just somewhat arbitrary.
It is somewhat arbitrary, but it's based on the amount of deterioration that we saw and an estimation of what will need to be done once we get into it. Because a lot of times with the restoration projects, you start chipping on something and the areas grow. So
I understand that. I've
so
had
these
lots of
num-
experience in that.
So these numbers are fluffed up a little bit to account for a lot of the unknowns and unexpected conditions that we will probably run into.
I'm gonna say, you know, we've only got 2 hours and I don't think we're gonna get stuck on any one small thing. So I'm just gonna say to everybody, let's try to keep things moving along. So you're basically, what I'm hearing is you've had a lot of experience, and from just your professional experience, you're making estimates, approximations to what you think we would need to address these issues.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to suggest we move on to masonry. Is there anything anybody wants to ask about the masonry brick repairs?
I want to ask the same question I did for concrete. We have significant bad masonry, bad foundations in our 2002 editions. We have 113 lineal feet, more than we do in the 1957 edition, half as much as we do in the original building. Same way, same thing goes. As a matter of fact, we have a lot more brick problems. Of course, there's not very much brick in the classroom and media center portion of the building. But we're saying all that work that was done just 20 years ago needs major work.
We've got room in place that's an issue.
400 square feet of it.
Yeah, and I would not say that's major work. It's a small portion of the facade. So
Okay.
$65,000 is a pretty small restoration project if you're giving that to a mason.
Okay. And then I guess I'd like to move to tuck pointing if we can. If there's any question, if there's not, we can move along, because there's some issues a little later on that I think are a little more that we need to look at a little more closely. Are there any things there? Tuck pointing, expansion joints, painting steel ledge angles, repairing ledge angles, repairing window sills, and there's definitely, you can see work that needs to be done there. One question I do have on the window sills: if we're replacing windows, is this kind of a masonry that's around the windows?
This is I believe they're precast.
You what?
They are precast.
It's the precast masonry unit that's below the window frame.
Okay.
So
it wouldn't be part of the window replacement. It's
Correct.
what's around it. Okay.
Yeah.
If people don't have anything on those next little bits, the windows, there were some questions, I think, on the windows. Does anybody have any questions before we get to windows? I guess my only question is on the classroom administration gym. So that's 2002. Which of the windows are you saying of the 2002
Need to be replaced.
need to be replaced? Yeah, thank you.
that is some of the fogged glass, the metal panels, not the metal, where the wood.
That's not the 2002 edition.
Yeah, I've got it. Same thing. It's
One thing Craig Conrad said, and he wasn't able to be on the call, but he said that in the annex, which is the 57, that those windows were replaced. He thought about 25 years ago that they're double pane, but possibly they're sliders, which would be a reason to replace them potentially.
Just a second, we didn't get the answer on what windows in the 2002 edition need to be replaced.
Craig thought they were fixed windows and double pane, and so we were questioning. Is that a life cycle that in 20 years you would replace windows of that age, of that type?
Yeah, I would expect those to be replaced between 20 to 30 years.
Okay.
Why is that, Tim?
Partially, it's
If they're double pane glass, and the frames are in good shape, what's the purpose of the replacement?
there's the improvement factor of whether they're thermally broken or not. I don't have the shop drawings for the window installation, but I'm assuming if they were 25 years old that they are not thermally broken, which impacts the condensation on the interior and thermal conductivity, and they don't perform as well. But it would definitely be something that you could put off and move down the line as a priority.
Well, could we answer that question if we ask the teachers if they get condensation in the wintertime? Would
Sure,
that question be answered?
part of that can be combated with the HVAC systems and those upgrades, and they kind of all go hand in hand. Like I assume Motz would do as part of their sizing of the units, they're taking into account the thermal efficiency of the wall system and the window systems. So
Right.
if there's cold air coming in on the windows, maybe it's not causing condensation, but it's also causing the HVAC to maybe need a bigger unit or work more and spend more energy.
So what we're saying, or what I'm hearing is on this list, some of these things are improvements rather than repairs.
Correct.
What percentage of the windows in that school are 2002 edition? I mean, the majority are the original construction, right? The 2002 is on the I don't know, compass wise, but it's the saw cut kind of the sawtooth section.
In
Is
the front,
newer.
in the
52
front.
In the
Simple
front.
way is
52 edition are the only original windows. The 57 was replaced approximately
25 years ago.
about the same time that the
As the
2002
2002.
edition was built.
Well,
So they're
so
20
to
years
Tim's
old.
point, to determine if the windows are thermally broke would be a question we'd want to evaluate. I understand the windows, if they're in good shape, if the seals are all in place, and if you replace them, you would get a de minimis amount of improvement in terms of thermal envelope. I would be with you in terms of not replacing them. If a new window is only going to be fractionally better, it wouldn't make sense to do it. If they're terrible shape, if they're the seals are all broken, they're not thermally working, then there'd be an argument to be made. I would say that windows on a energy recovery basis, the payback is forever. So even in your home, replacing your windows the energy payback between an old drafty window and a really good new window is relatively slow. The payback takes forever because they're so damned expensive. So I think we'd look at those seriously. I think all the windows in the original building that haven't been replaced are leaking so bad and would make sense to replace. But anything that's 20 years or younger, I think would have to stand the level of scrutiny before I would say replace them.
I agree
So,
with that.
Okay.
I think what Tim's saying is basically windows of that era generally are very good shape and typically aren't performing as well as new windows. But again, it would be a cost benefit calculation to be made. And to me, it's an energy question. If they're in poor shape and they're foggy and they're leaking around, then, probably should be replaced, but certainly can be discussed.
So if they're not leaking and they're not foggy and not causing any other noticeable problems, replacing them is probably, from a thermal standpoint, is not, there's not a good
Necessary.
payback on that.
No,
It would be a low priority.
Okay.
it'd be a low priority. I agree with that.
Do we want to go to door replacements?
My first question on door replacements is, are these interior doors or exterior doors or both?
These should be exterior doors.
Only exterior doors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because those numbers seem rather high for exterior doors.
Well,
Especially
we
in the
need to
original
remember too
construction.
that some of the exterior doors are going to be removed, which you may not have been aware of, Tim. The ones to the front of the sawtooth would be removed in a renovation. So anyway. Okay, so these are
32 exterior
exteriors.
doors.
So that's good to know. We can.
Yeah, but okay, it's listed as 0 for that part, so that's not an issue. What I'm looking at is the original
Okay.
construction,
That's
1952,
true.
32 exterior doors. There aren't exterior doors in the classrooms. All right, so it's really hard to imagine 32 exterior doors in that portion of the building.
Well, we can double check it, is what I would suggest.
Yeah.
On the map, I know for sure that they were exterior doors in the bathrooms, something that they wanted to take out, something that was recommended to be taken
That's a
out.
good point. Yep. That's a good point. I'm not sure they're workable doors, but yeah, that's a good point. All right. Well, that's good to clarify. These are exterior because it was a little unclear to me. Do we need to talk about MNOP? There's one that's 78,000. Let me see, masonry controlled joints. Yeah. Oh, no, wait, which one is it? Building sealant replacements. Is a lot higher cost, 78,000. I don't know if there's any. That just has to do with caulking and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the caulk that's basically between brick and brick in the wall to run vertically all the way up.
Okay.
Miscellaneous sealants.
There's probably some fair amount of work to be done in that regard, I would think.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we go on to roof? Because that's
I've got a couple more questions here.
okay.
Item N on the spreadsheet that I'm looking at. We've got window air conditioner infills. If we're going to replace the windows, that item certainly would drop out.
True.
Agreed.
Okay.
And as well as there going to be, I guess the new window system could account for window air conditioner units, or are those going away too as part of the mechanical upgrades?
If we did a mechanical upgrade, we would try to eliminate the window air conditioning system entirely, and either do a VRF cassette that's in each room in the ceiling, or we would do a unit ventilator that would also cool, and we would have, you know, a louver or something behind the unit ventilator on the exterior wall, but we would not use the window. That would be replaced with another window, a new complete window. And just real quick on the 2002 side, are those windows operable, any of them, or are they all fixed?
They have emergency exits out of each classroom.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah,
But the teacher can't open them for fresh air necessarily. It's purely an emergency exit.
They've opened the
which-
doors for ventilations, from what I understand. I'm not sure about the windows. One of the complaints from the teachers about those specific windows is that they feel that they can be seen from the outside. And let's say that there is an active shooter situation, they wouldn't know where to hide themselves and the kids in the classroom. So they were pointing out the transparency of those
Okay.
windows that are, as you know, floor to ceiling.
Another question I had, Tim, was the large skylight replacement. What's the advisability of retaining the structure and repairing or replacing the skylight panels?
Skylights are always a touchy subject because the aluminum extrusions are usually proprietary to the manufacturer. So it's a little hard to calculate capacity. So these have a plastic polycarbonate lens on them that doesn't weigh a lot. So you couldn't go back and put glass on this. You would need to go back with something lighter, and reusing the structure for something like that, I'd be comfortable doing, and upgrading the gaskets and the anchors. So there could be a way to refurbish all the units and save a significant amount of money.
Okay, so
But there would be limitations.
right.
And we wouldn't be double pane glass, for example.
Right. It would not be insufficient. I would probably
Would that
recommend,
be done by a glazing contractor?
Probably.
yes, but yeah, you would still need it to be stamped and all permitted and all that stuff.
So if the skylight material was replaced by a glazing contractor with a material that was of equal or lesser weight, there wouldn't be any questions involved?
Not in my opinion. I mean,
Okay,
I would need to do some more research on just looking at the frame and
sure, I
the
understand.
Yeah.
connection
I'm
to the
just
structure.
trying to get some general,
If the frame and the
idea.
structure is safe and not rusted and corroded, then you should be able to replace those like for like, and that should not be an issue.
thank you.
So what part of the skylight is failing that needs to be replaced?
It's primarily the seals and the gaskets around the fiberglass panels, and some of the fiberglass panels on the smaller skylight are starting to bond and delaminate. I don't know if it's from damage or just age and
The
UV
sun.
exposure. Yeah. But
So the
based on
gasketing on the skylights was either not as good as the gasketing we use on windows, or it's just gets that much more UV and it just doesn't last as long.
correct, and it's been wet sealed in the past. That's normally with your skylight system. That'll be the first effort to repair it. So if the skylight's leaking, or the skylight's built, it's got gaskets that are compressing the metal and the glazing panel. And once those gaskets start failing, a lot of times they used to be neoprene, those break down. Now they use EPDM, which lasts longer. But when the neoprene would break down, then they go back and they put a bead of caulk between the metal and the panel, Well, that caulk ends up bonding to both, and then it causes or restricts movement between the two as they expand and contract, because you've got different materials and coefficients of expansion. So then you're putting a lot of stress on the panels. So that it was more of a Band-Aid to keep it from leaking, but then you're theoretically taking life away from the glazing.
You're creating other problems.
And it's almost impossible to fix now because you won't be able to cut out those sealants without damaging a lot of the glazing panels.
The only other question I had on Mills Lawn was that there's a figure in your estimate, Tim, of $7,800 to remove the modulars. And other portions of the estimate, not yours, there was a $28,000 figure to remove the modular. So you feel like that $7,800 is realistic?
I don't see why it should be that difficult to.
I don't either.
Aside from capping the electric to it and shutting that down, I think you're literally having somebody haul it off site.
I think if you're clever, you could probably get somebody to take it for salvage value and not charge you anything.
That's what I was thinking. In fact, there probably are some folks around who would like to use it for storage or something like that. So potentially, I think we could get rid of it without.
You may have to put tires on it or put the platform, put it on a platform, but I know people that would, for salvage value, would probably take it off your hands.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Should we?
I realize that this may be more of an architectural question than an engineering question, but wait a second. Oh, I'm not in the right place. Oops. Where's our railing that goes from the art room along the side of the building?
It is
Line
here
V.
somewhere.
It's V.
V. Yeah,
V.
let's go. Let's not go
Okay,
past
well,
this stuff. Okay.
That's under B?
V as
as
in
in
Victory.
Victor.
B. Concrete
Victor.
balcony regs. Okay. Wouldn't it make more sense just to remove that and have a set of steps that go from the door down to the ground, since it's only an emergency exit? Is there any reason that it has to extend the whole length of the building?
I would say no. I would do a shorter landing at the top and then stairs to
Right.
come right down.
Which would significantly lower the cost of that.
Theoretically, you still have to
Yeah.
do all the demo of. the
Yeah,
other
no, you still have
stuff,
to do the
but yeah,
demo. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
In pretty bad shape.
No, it's
What
not
it-
going to be repaired. There's no two ways
Oh,
about it.
no, I wasn't suggesting. I was just commenting on. It's in pretty bad shape. Okay, want to go to the roof, back to the roofs, because I have some questions here. Let's see. The 19. Somebody else go. Let me just find a note I need to make sure I'm saying this correct.
Let me ask how you chose modified bitumen as opposed to built up or membrane. Why was that the standard used?
There we go.
That's probably the cheapest, most common that we would recommend. You can definitely do a cheap rubber membrane roof. We don't recommend them because there's so many problems and so much maintenance and people going up on there, and you get a hole one place, it leaks everywhere. I mean, it's the best system that I would recommend.
Tim,
The cheapest.
so included in that cost is a
Best
complete
value.
tear off and insulation replacement.
Yes.
Okay. And then I'd like to get your comment. We have been in touch with a major roofing contractor nationwide, with an incredible reputation. We won't mention any names at this point, but it's a name that you would easily recognize. And they indicated that they would do a comprehensive roof evaluation, including a thermal imaging, nuclear density imaging on every square foot of our roofs, both combined, both facilities, for $5,000. Is that something that you would recommend before we made a decision on the roof?
I think that would probably be money well spent. It would definitely give you priority areas to replace, especially if you're going to phase any of this over multiple years. But that seems like a good investment. I know.
Both schools?
Both schools.
I'm sure they're losing money on that, but they're doing it to get in their foot in the door with you.
Sure. What are your comments on a roof rehabilitation versus a replacement? My understanding is that if they come in and decide that a roof can be restored, that they will do whatever's necessary and provide a guarantee for maybe even up to the life of a new roof. I don't have any experience with it, but I was curious what your experience is.
I'm doing just that on a building down at the University of Cincinnati right now. It's about to go out for bid, and we're going to basically re-roof it. We're going to put a new liquid applied system down and new gravel on top, and we're going to get a 20-year warranty out of it.
And that's a restoration.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And
Good.
It's definitely cheaper. With that, with that building, we're under some limitations on insulation thickness, and the university doesn't foresee the building lasting that long. So that's why we're going something that cheap. We're not increasing the insulation. We're not improving any of the value to it. So you could do that here. Your insulation probably is below the code requirements, the current code requirements now. Yeah, I believe, I don't think there's any insulation over the gym on the 2002 edition, that area.
I understand that insulation is problematic. Now, if you went with a new roof, what kind of guarantee would you get on a new roof? Same?
You can probably at least get a 30-year, depending on
30.
which system. 30, yeah.
30 versus 20 for a restoration.
Right. And
okay,
but the manufacturers will tell you your
sure
30-year roof should last longer than that. 20-year roof maybe pushing it.
The 1957 section is still under warranty. Now, we had heard there were some leaks, but I spoke to somebody else at the school who said there haven't been leaks in that area. But if it's under warranty, when a roof is under warranty and is coming off a warranty, what are the recommendations do you make at that point? Are you fully replacing it? Are you, if it's, what's the next step?
It depends on how bad it is. I mean, it depends on.
Well, did you see the 50, you saw the roofs, of the Mills Lawn now we're talking about.
Yeah, that's the one that's over, not the sawtooth portion, but the other portion that's off.
Right. It's sort of between the oldest part and the but it also is kind of to the back of this sawtooth as well, actually.
Yeah, that's the one that's the single ply rubber roof.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Do you mean over the 1957 wing? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah,
Yes. Well, is that considered the annex for you that know how this is? Richard, what do
Yes.
people refer to as the annex? I understood it to be the part, the kind of,
There,
The
it
19
depends on how old you are, how different parts of the building are referred to. There is no universal.
Okay. Well, Craig was referring to it as the annex, and that's what I was trying to, but anyway, it is under warranty, but the warranty is probably coming off in a couple of years. And I just wondered generally, when you're approaching the end of a warranty, given the kind of roof that is, kind of how you think about what to do next. Do you?
that roof, I would peel it off and replace it and
Okay,
go with something more high end than what.
okay.
what we
They
put
they
on.
initially they had some problems with that, I think, at some point. Yeah. Okay.
Because if there was a 30-year roof and put on it, you wouldn't be dealing with any of the issues that you're dealing with now. That's kind of our thought process here is you're spending a lot of money to fix these buildings. Spend a little bit more to do it right.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I mean, it's probably one of the biggest investments in the community.
Okay. Do we want to go on to Motz, the Motz on Mills Lawn?
Well, while we've got Tim on the hook here, do we want to go ahead and finish up on his end of it, and
Oh, then you
possibly
could
he might be able to
do.
be on to other things then.
That's a good point. Would you prefer that, Tim?
I'm sure Michael doesn't, but he had a hard stop at 6. He had a hard stop at 6. I have a hard stop at 5:45 because
Okay.
they're doing computer maintenance, and I may get booted off.
Okay. Well, we should move along then, because we don't want you booted off before and we want to have a chance to talk to both of you. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the middle high school. So any conversation about, I was just going to go down, we can just go down the road again there. We know Tim's general approach to thinking about the concrete, the masonry, and brick repair, the tuck pointing. I don't know, is there anything that you guys want to ask about?
I just have a question on clarity. What is the breakdown between original construction 1963 and gymnasium 1963? When you say gymnasium, what are you referring to?
I'm referring to the 2-story that's kind of above the other roofs.
That room,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
because it doesn't have any exterior walls at this point.
only above the roof. Where
Above the roof, it does up higher, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, but we're looking at masonry and brick repair.
yeah.
So we're talking about what's on the second floor. What's
Right,
Yeah,
okay when we talk
around the
about
gym, around the
repairs
gym.
there. Okay.
Actually, I do have a little question there. The classroom corridor addition 1988, which is the modulars. The corridor. Are you talking about the corridor that goes up to the modular, that little rampish corridor?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
With classroom and corridor addition. It's all that was built when the modulars were put there. They were.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to be sure. All right, so the reason I bring it up is if we're deciding, depending on what we're deciding to do with the modulars, some of those numbers would come out if we're, whatever, we're just, if we need to be thinking about the fact that that wouldn't stay there if we're thinking of getting rid of the modular. So that's the only reason I bring it up. Do you want to go down to windows? Or are there any questions before windows?
What about doors?
Doors are after windows. Windows go first.
I thought doors was ahead of window on the printout that I have, but
No,
maybe you're-
not unless you got a special printout off for your shelf. At least it isn't on mine. Windows are first. So.
Okay.
So
um,
let's do windows.
Yeah.
I'm aware that there are windows in the original construction of the tower have problems, but I didn't know that all of the windows in the original construction had problems. Is this figure just for the tower, or does this include all of the original construction, the 2,700 square feet of window?
That's everything from the original construction.
Okay, and that would be replacing everything,
Correct.
whether it's been replaced already or not. Okay,
Yeah.
and then what windows are in the gymnasium?
It's a good question. I think that's the corridor on the, which direction am I looking at? The south side.
Of the corridor that was added in 2000.
The corridor on the one side of the gym was added in 2002. I don't know if that was clear to you when you looked at it. Those are fixed windows. They look to be in good shape. If you just to look at them, but are those the ones you were talking about with the gym? And then there's that front hallway, in front of the front office, and that's not what you were referencing, was it?
No,
That's what I just asked.
Okay.
He
Yeah,
said, yes,
well-
he was.
that
No,
was
he-
it. That was part of the 63 original construction.
That
The
was part of the
gym-
63. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the
Hey,
gymnasium
Donna?
windows, those should be the 2002.
Those are part of two. Right. So that's another question, that we look at them and assess whether there's been any broken seals, before we would decide, yes, those do need to be replaced. Correct?
Yeah, that would be a good value engineering thing to come
Right.
off the list.
Okay. And then again, there's the modulars are broken out there, just to point that out. So now we're to doors. Jerry? Well, I'll just say, I had a question about, and I just thought maybe there was a mistake. The gymnasium it says quantity 83. I don't know exactly what you're referencing there, but it's $269,000, so it's a significant cost. And what were you talking about? Is that it seemed like maybe it was just a mistake? We weren't sure.
Yeah, that seems like a mistake.
It seems like a mistake. Okay.
That's
And I'm
the
so-
square footage. Isn't that the square footage of the gymnasium?
No,
No,
I've got
these are
It's
each.
about, it says
Have you-
each on the doors, and it says
Yeah,
Oh,
I got
oh,
83 doors in there.
83. And
But
yeah,
these are
Oh.
exterior doors again?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
I need to check that number.
you'll check that. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. And there's
and
no
I
exterior.
don't know.
And then,
Sorry, I need some clarification about that. Are we saying that the 83 doors in the gymnasium Was it a mistake or did it belong to another category? I guess that's what I'm asking here.
I need to double check it. I believe it's a mistake.
If it's exterior doors, I mean, I'm sitting here just going around the exterior of the building, and I don't think that there are 123 doors in the exterior of the high school. So
There's that back hallway that goes to the back from the gym. There's doors there.
no, there are several sets of doors, and most of them are pairs of doors, so that ups the number. But 40 for the original construction could be correct, but there aren't an additional 83 that have been
Yeah.
added to the building. There's no way.
I'll have to double check that.
So
I
the
do
tw-
have, oh, sorry, Jerry, go for it. I'll go after you.
The 29 doors in the 2002 edition are meant to be exterior doors.
I believe so also, but I'll double check all of the exterior door numbers.
Okay.
I
Thank
do
you.
have a,
Just so we're on the same song sheet, the
Oh.
interior doors should be in Rishley's. Replacement of interior doors should be in Rishley's estimate. Is that correct?
Mike Richley's the architect, Tim.
Yeah, I would assume any interior work would be on his, yes.
Okay.
I had a related questions. I was wondering where would the replacement of indoor doors, or not so much replacement maybe, but changing how they swing out, where it would show up in the documents that are being produced. Would you know, Mike Murdoch?
It would be
Where-
in the interior, it would be the architect's drawings. Any
It would be in the
changes
architect drawing, okay. But those numbers, so they would show up on the budget that he gave here with you, on which he worked with you, is that right?
It would show up in his estimate, yeah.
In
I
his
think it's
estimate.
probably included in his estimate, I would imagine.
Okay,
In the renovation number, not the bare bones number, but the renovation number.
Right.
okay.
Oh, the Galvestos panel replacement. I know Craig Conrad had wondered if, I mean, in his time working for the schools, you know, his experience was that you try, you know, to the extent that it's possible, you just, you know, keep things contained. And I know you said there was some rust maybe on that you had that you were seeing starting maybe on the edges of some of those panels. Does it make sense? Would it make sense rather than taking them out to just seal them and then putting something over them? Is that a sensible approach?
Yes, maintaining them, encapsulating the rust, and then painting the whole system would be definitely
Another way to do it.
another way to shave some money off the budget.
I was going to suggest we go to the roofs again. This is another place where, again, the 2002. Gosh, these are such long papers. Let me just make sure I'm looking down the right aisle here. So it's 780,000 for a replacement on the 2002. One of the things that Craig was talking about was in the new, you know, those are 20 years old roofs, time for restoration. So you've seen the roof there. Is it one of the ballast or? Anyway, he was thinking, you know, now's the time that you could actually do a restoration and save some significant money. You agree that's a possibility? And
I
that
would-
number you have is not a restoration. I assume it's just a new roof.
Correct. It's just
Okay.
tearing off the existing and putting back new. So
Okay.
there's definitely areas that would be a candidate for restoration. I would think the 2002 could be.
Okay, okay, cool. Thank you. Other questions about roofs? We've lost Brittany, we've lost David. Okay, do we want to, is that it for Tim?
Question I have is the insulated panel replacement. Why is that necessary?
I believe these are the ones around the music room that are, there's a bunch of them that are broken. I think there's 8 or 9 that are broken. So you could theoretically just replace the damaged ones.
They're cracked, right? They've been cracked or kicked in or have.
Yeah, they have puncture holes in them.
Oh, the insulated panel, that's to do with the, what they call the spaceship or the
The
round,
circle. Yeah.
round roof, okay. Anything else? Can I ask you, what are Clara story? What's a Clara story?
Those are clear story. It's the
Clear story.
it's basically an overhead window that looks down into a space above. But it's
Oh,
not
okay.
a skylight, but it's just a vertical.
Okay, okay. I just was curious what it was.
That's that contraption that is on the roof that was put up there for ventilation
It's on top of the tower. Yeah.
on top
Yeah.
of the
There's
tower.
I think there's 2 little like dog houses up there.
Okay, do we want to let Tim go and move on to the next two, Michael?
I can hang on if you want, Michael, for you guys, if you have any questions come up. I'm happy to
Up
I'm
to
happy to
you.
hang.
Up to you guys.
I can hang on until they kick me off computer.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, well, let's go to, so the blue and green sheet that's got at the bottom, the Motz scope. And I guess we start with HVAC. And by the way, Michael, I talked to Mike Mendelson, is that his name?
Mendenhall.
Mendenhall, sorry, yep. Today, that was very useful, I thought, in terms of potential monies for, for the mechanical system replacements, the lighting and all of that. And
Right,
he was
different potential funding sources.
yeah, that could potentially be taken out of a bond
Budget.
Bond budget. Yeah. So that was very, yeah, it was good to talk to him. Anyway, let's start with HVAC at Mills Lawn.
Okay.
Any general questions about, or any kind of questions?
I do. I think I asked it at the board meeting. I just wanted to make sure that we're still on the same page. This is not a replacement like for like. This would be a redesign of the HVAC system. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, so in my original spreadsheet that I gave you, that original spreadsheet was a like for like replacement. So whatever that big long spreadsheet that had all the data in it, that envisioned replacing what you have with exactly something else that's just like it, right? Maybe a new version of a boiler or a new version of a VRF system, but it is going back exactly with what you have. Now, in the prices that Richley gave you, we gave you 2 prices, a bare bones or a minimal, and then a full renovation, right? Deep renovation, I think he called it. In both of those cases, it is a new system, different than what you have, based on what we think is the best long-term system that we can put back in your building. So
Where did
it's
you go?
more money. Sorry.
I forgot.
It's more money. It's more money in the Richley estimate.
Okay.
And it would be a re-engineering.
Oh, well.
Now, the question would be, could we reuse the 2-pipe system? We'd have to determine what the status is of the two pipe system. And it also assumes worst case. It assumes we're replacing all the plumbing, that the plumbing that's there is no good. It could be perfectly fine. The sanitary and the storm laterals out to the street could be in great shape. It assumes, though, right now that those would be replaced. It assumes that you would replace all the roof drains on the roof. It assumes that you're replacing all the toilet fixtures, all the faucets, all the finishes inside the toilet rooms. It would be new ductwork. It would be a completely replaced. It wouldn't be like for like going back. It would be reimagined, re-envisioned mechanical systems that we, and that number is conservative also. That number's a big number, and it would probably do everything you needed to do. It would probably give you the option to, it's not a Cadillac. You're not going back with a 4-pipe, super nice VAV and all the highest performance equipment, but it's provide you really with as good a system as you could want in a school.
Okay, thank you.
Did you jump up to the plumbing? I'm sorry, I stepped away for a second when you.
She was just trying to understand whether the Richley estimates were like for like or were different. And what I said, Judith, was my original big spreadsheet was a like for like. Richley's estimates, both his bare bones minimum and his deep renovation, were new engineering, new systems, different than what's there today. And it would depend on what conditions were of the two pipe system, and we'd have taken into a lot of factors. And we'd present to you, or whoever we're presenting to, 3 different systems for consideration, both in first cost and life cycle cost and maintenance, energy efficiency. And it would be, okay, here's your options that we would go back with. What do you guys think in terms of those options?
So, Mike, if we were to be able to reutilize the hydronic piping.
Yes, sir.
Do you have an idea of what the cost savings would be?
Significant. If you could reuse that piping and you went back with a hot water, chilled water, 2-pipe system that would have kind of you'd have a shoulder season on each end of the spring and fall would have a shoulder season. Running new pipe is extraordinarily expensive. So could I give you a figure? Yeah, like right off the top of my head, probably not. I'd have to know the linear footage of this existing system, and then I could tell you a cost per linear foot. But it could easily be $10 a linear foot, maybe $15 a linear foot to run a new system. So if that pipe's no good, I would not go back. I would not recommend you go back with a 2-pipe system.
Understood.
Just for the cost.
Sure. Now, if the piping would be deemed serviceable in the long run, do you think that you would probably be utilizing that piping in the system that you would recommend?
I think that would be your best long-term system. I think that would be the most energy efficient and provide you the longest life cycle. Would be to go back with a system like that. It'd be a 30+ year system in terms of the unit ventilators and in terms of the boiler and the chiller. And I think if we could make that work, that would be, it wouldn't be the cheapest first cost, but it would be by far the best life cycle cost. It would last the longest and provide you energy efficient heating and cooling. More so than probably any other option. A VRF system is very, very energy efficient, but they do not have a long life cycle. You would have to replace the VRF system every 15 to 20 years. If you could put this 2-pipe system in, it might go 50 years. You may have to replace the chiller or the boiler, but the unit ventilators and the piping, it could go 50 years. I've seen there's systems in a building downtown Cincinnati, the library. Cincinnati Public Library. That system's in place there, and it's going on 85 years, and it's
Wow.
working fine.
Do you have
So-
a feel for, just a rough percentage, what the additional cost would be for a two-pipe system versus a lower cost HVAC option? Are you gonna pay a 20%?
Yeah.
premium?
I would say the two pipe system is probably close to $40 a square foot. Now, if we pipe still good, it's probably less than that, maybe $35 a square foot. A VRF system's $25 a square foot. A water source heat pump is probably $25 to $30 a square foot. The two pipe is 10 or 15% more expensive. And I could give you, again, if I knew a
Sure,
little bit more, I could give you and I would, if any engineer you select would give you options in terms of cost and life cycle, or should. First cost, and then life cycle, and then potential duration the piece of equipment or system should last, and give you that opportunity to make you know what, we can't afford the Cadillac, let's do the less expensive system, knowing that it's going to be, maybe not as long a life cycle. But those are all considerations that we would do.
sure. But the answer to that question would be predicated on the serviceability of the existing piping system.
Correct. Right. If you were to build a new school and money wasn't a factor, so if the state gave you $50 million and said build a new school, that's the system I would recommend you go in, because it's going to give you the longest life cycle over any other system. It's going to last, like I said, 85 years. It's going to give you the best life cycle.
And there'll be a payback over the other systems on operating costs.
Yes, it would be much better payback life cycle than any other system you would pick. Like I said, VRF, very efficient, highly energy efficient, probably the best efficiency you can buy today. But 15 or 20 years, you're replacing the entire system. So if
Yeah,
you figure,
that doesn't sound that efficient.
no, right. They just don't last as long. Water source heat pump, you're replacing the pump, the compressors every 10 years. The piping should last a while longer, but that's also, it's a pretty efficient first cost system. But you do have a lot of maintenance, and all those little 5, 7, 10 horsepower compressors fail, every 10 years. So it kind of eats you up over time.
I noticed in your recommendations regarding the boilers at Mills Lawn School, you indicated that those are currently manufactured models. There are replacement parts available, et cetera, et cetera. How do you personally feel about maintaining the boiler system in Mills Lawn School?
I'm probably a little different than most engineers in this regard, that I think some of the the boilers break down into high efficiency condensing boilers, right? And what would be considered lower efficiency non-condensing boilers. And based on the price of natural gas, which is very cheap relative to other energy sources, I like the lower efficiency cast iron boilers or marine style boilers because they last so long and there's very low maintenance, and a cast iron boiler will last 50, 60, 70 years. High efficiency condensing boiler, we've had very poor luck with them. They'll last 15 years. They require a lot of maintenance. They're much, much more expensive, double, triple the cost. You save a small amount of energy relative to the amount you're using. and you're doing a lot of maintenance, and then you're replacing it every 15 years. So my experience has been pretty poor with the condensing boilers.
So given the availability of parts and the age of the boiler in Mills Lawn School,
Yeah,
do you still recommend that boiler would be replaced?
I would. It's pretty old, and at this point, you're going to replace the burners and the heat exchanger itself. You know, I would probably, if you're going to do a renovation, I would probably recommend you buy a better version of that boiler, maybe something cast iron. That boiler's got the copper tubes. It's a copper tube boiler. I would go with probably a similar efficiency, but a better product that would last longer, and you wouldn't have to really mess with it for a long, long time.
And that's what's in your estimate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you said, Mike, we just want to make that boiler, clean that boiler up, I really wouldn't have a problem with that either. I think that, again, that boiler's, the parts for it, you know, they're making, that company makes a big long line of boilers, and we could look at any number of their lower efficiency products, and any one of those I think would be a good choice. Now, your maintenance guy, he tells me those boilers are a big pain in his butt. He likes the boilers over at the high school better, which I was surprised to hear about. But that was his comment to me, is those boilers are a pain in his butt. But
so I have a related question here, and I know we've talked about it. I think about it because I picked my kids from the building today, and it smells so strong of gas.
yeah,
So
I was going to go out there with
Yeah.
a gas analyzer and try to figure out where that odor was coming from and what exactly it is. I haven't done it, but we have a tool that samples multiple different kinds of gases, and we were going to try to figure out where the source of that was and exactly what it was. There seems to be a dispute as to whether or not you're actually venting natural gas and you're smelling that, or if it's exhaust, which to me are two completely different odors. So
it smells like the gas from my stove when my stove fire goes out. That's what it smells like.
Yeah, it smells like garlicky. It's kind of got a garlicky odor to it.
Well,
Yeah.
Craig Conrad says this has been an issue for years, and when the wind blows a certain way, and it sounds like maybe it's not burning fully, but he
Yeah.
said,
The issue
I mean, I don't know, that would be nice to do something about it. It's not great for people to be worried because it smells like gas, that's for sure.
So that's the issue of not addressing it, is then we don't know if there is an active gas leak that is an emergency and that could, be a danger issue, or whether or not it's normal. And I think that's the uncertainty here. That is the problem, is that we don't know if there's a crisis to handle.
Well, I would tell you a small amount of natural gas smells up a big area. So, and as meters, that's the entry point to your building's natural gas is right there at that meter. And my guess, and I know I disagree with the gentleman that previously said it was an exhaust system issue. My guess is there is a vent in that. So in all those meters, that utility puts a vent. In the event of an overpressurization, the system's allowed to vent off a little bit of gas, so you don't have a rupture. And what you may be smelling is that vent stuck open, or it's venting more than it should, or there's a gas pressure issue, and what you are smelling is natural gas, and it's coming out of that meter. It's unlikely that it's in a concentration that's a danger, but we can get the sensor up there and start sniffing around. I was planning on doing that when school was out. I don't know when school out. Friday, tomorrow?
No, on Wednesday. Wednesday is the first time of a break.
Well, maybe the week between Christmas and New Year's, then that week. But we have a sensor that sniffs gas and tells me if it's refrigerant or if it's natural gas. It analyzes like 80 different gases.
Is it an expensive thing, that analyzer?
No.
I mean, if somebody at the school had it, and like Craig Carter.
Yeah, I don't know what, a couple $100. I don't know what we paid for it, 800. I don't know.
Well, the
but
fire
I have
department
one
has it as well.
for
Yeah, I was
sure,
gonna say,
for sure. And the
I was-
utility, Duke has it. Duke will have one as well, or whoever your gas supplier is. But yeah, the fire department definitely has it because they get called in because, you know, people smell stuff in their houses and they're trying to identify is it poisonous or not.
Mhm.
Well, smelling natural gas is discerning, but it doesn't
Yes.
necessarily mean that you have a combustible mixture.
Correct. It's so diluted it won't light, but still, if you're smelling it, it's a problem. You know, just because it
Exactly.
causes people anxiety for nothing else.
Yep.
So we'll get Dorothy. We'll get to the. We'll go up there either next week or the week after and bring the sniffer.
And would you need to be inside the buildings for that?
No. I would like to get on the you know what the gentleman, the maintenance guy, was saying was that he thought that it was incomplete combustion coming out of that furnace, or maybe it's a water heater. And so if I could get on the roof, I can stick the sensor down. It's got a big long wand on it. And if I can stick it down the vent, it will tell me what part is incomplete combustion. You know, it gives me a breakdown of all the gases that are in the.
Well, before you do that, we ought to confirm that you have an accessible point to put the meter in. If you got a
I'm
big,
just going to stick it in the
if
flue.
you got a big stack, you know, and it's way up above the roof.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not Spider-Man. I'm not going to be able to.
Yeah,
get up there.
we have to have an access point for you to
Well,
insert the.
Fair enough. I mean, I could find a place in the flue down in the boiler room or something, but yeah, you're right. You'd probably need an access point. I thought he said that those flues vented, and because of the prevailing wind, blew them in the direction of the front door, and they were anyway.
Yeah. Well, that would be helpful. We appreciate that, Mike.
No problem. No problem. I don't want you having an explosion up there, especially after we walked around and looked at it. That would be a problem.
Excuse me, I have to leave now. I have another
Okay.
meeting to go to. Just wanted to let you know I wasn't getting annoyed or.
Do you have any questions that
Not that I can't ask in some other format. And I gave a lot of my questions to Jerry, so he's got the list.
Okay.
See y'all later.
Bye-bye. In terms of plumbing, I just wanted to let you know, Mike, that Michael, that the village is doing this where they are putting these sleeves, these liners in our sewer system and our the stormwater sewer piping. And so anyway, I know we had talked about that idea of whether you can use a. So
no, and MSD does that down in Cincinnati, and the equivalent in Columbus does it. And I think that's a great idea. It gives you it extends the life of the pipe. The question is the pipe crumbling
Right.
or not?
I realize, yeah, if it's beyond a certain point, it's not.
It's not going to
feasible, but
work.
That's why you need to. That's why we need the camera to kind of know where we stand on that. I wondered what that cost. You know, that's
well
the cost that you had there. Does that include replacing all of that, or does it not? I wasn't. No.
Well, which cost? Which cost are you talking?
Okay, plumbing, storm sanitary, supply piping, and fixtures. And I realize some of it's fixtures. Yes, you got a 712,000 at Mills Lawn.
Yeah,
and then $1 million.
includes replacing everything.
It does.
100%.
Okay.
That includes saw cutting up the floor, digging out the old pipe, putting in a new PVC pipe, running an entirely new wet wall.
So that price would come down substantially if we know what condition the pipe's in. Okay.
For sure. And the camera guy, underground detective, needs someone to show him what they want cameraed. And I was willing to do that. I kind of got the vibe from y'all that you guys were wanting to have a conversation with the school board and make sure you had permission to proceed in that direction. So I kind of stopped talking to those guys until I got some direction from you or from Dr. Holden or somebody. I didn't want to overstep my bounds and, tell people to meet me up there and you know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
I didn't want to,
Well, there's a cost involved with that if you use the underground detective, correct?
yeah, he's going to charge you for his work, but there's no
Right.
cost in working up an estimate.
Right, well.
Right.
But he
there-
needs
I think
somebody to
there's
say,
probably
what am
local
I doing?
resources here that if we want to do that, we can do that here.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Can I ask about what the domestic water heater? I know it's not just a heater. What does that include?
Well,
And then there's
several.
kind of the question of, I mean, I work at a hospital. The water is cold. and I work in the old part. The water never gets hot. You got to run it for 10 minutes to get hot water. So, nurses are washing their hands in cold water most of the
Cold water,
time.
right.
Yeah,
right.
so we don't use hot water, and when we have to heat it up for patients, we put it in the microwave, basically so I just wondered in terms of, I mean, certainly the kitchen needs hot water.
Yeah,
But
that
what is
system that replaces all the hot water heaters. So you have several. You don't have just one, and that's not just a single. That replaces all the water heaters, and that
Mhm.
also puts recirculation pumps in to this piping system, so that it's recirculating hot water continuously, so that when you do turn the faucet on, that the water's hot within 30 seconds. To that, because there's a slug of water between the mixing valve and the tap that has got to empty out, that's cold because it's been sitting there. But
Right.
once that slug of water's out, the water should be warm. And so you should have, let me say warm water, not hot water, because we're not allowed to circulate hot water to a faucet where little kids can put their hands in it. So it's going to be, I don't know, 104 degrees or something like that. But that circulation allows the water to stay hot in that pipe, the supply pipe. And it shuts off at night or weekends. It's just got a timer on it, so it's not just running year round. But that's the cost would be replacing the water heaters. And I was probably going to replace them with an instant hot, which I think someone mentioned in the meeting. That's definitely the way to go, unless you're, taking lots of showers and there's lots of demand for water to be, but an instant hot water heater and then recirculation pumps. That's what that price is. And probably reusing as much of the existing copper as we can. If not, then there's probably a little bit more money being spent there.
Okay. And
I know it sounds like a lot of money for water heaters, and that
I just wondered what it entailed. The grease trap and kitchen waste system.
that was purely a guess. My experience with K-12 schools that are your age is that the waste system in the kitchen has been abused by the amount of fat and food particles and all the crap that's gone down there, and that it's probably in really poor shape. It can be inspected with the cameras, and that the grease trap is, as old as the school. And in general conditions, those grease traps have basically are falling apart because of all the fat in it. And just over time, they fall apart. So I threw that in there. If you don't need it, great. That's good. That's good that you don't. But today you put grease traps in that are fiberglass or polycarbonate that are last a lot longer, are not affected by any of the food product that's in there. So they're plastic in essence, and they last pretty much forever. But I didn't know. I'm assuming the old grease trap is concrete. It's a concrete bolt. The only way to really know is to pump it out and inspect it. And if it's in good shape, then I would not replace it. I would continue to use it. So that's just, I have no knowledge of the existing condition. My guess is every, 30 school districts we've had in the last 10 years, they've all had problems in the kitchen.
Okay.
I have 5 questions from our school board president about the electrical system.
Okay.
Let me find them again. Okay, here they are.
Controversial electrical system.
I guess, yeah. So here's his question. he says, can you separate out the electric and lighting cost on the line in the THP report? They are bundled together. I don't know if they meant the THP report.
They're in the Motz
Yep.
report.
They're in the
In the
Motz
Motz
report.
report, yes. So let's say that.
Yes, I can break out lighting replacement from power replacement. Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
His second question is that bundled cost for the electric for rerunning all new wiring?
No, it's probably 80% new wiring, but it's not all new wiring. So from your transformers into your service, those wires are probably okay and would probably be the most expensive anyway. So your good news is they're probably okay. And then any of the new equipment, newer equipment, 20 years or 25 years and younger, probably would be okay as well. But all those old panels that are the push-o-matics, all that wiring is long overdue to be replaced. And and that would be all the smaller diameter and smaller, you know, the 12 gauge or 10 gauge. My bet is a lot of the heavier gauge wire is relatively new and would be okay. I don't know for sure until we take the covers off of the panels and look inside.
Okay, I do think that you answered his third question, but I'm still going to ask it in case I'm not following along. He says, if we replace the panels only and found the wiring in the building was okay, what would be the cost?
I have a price in my spreadsheet per panel. So the like for like, if you go back to the like for like estimate, I have a unit price in there for the panels installed. I don't remember exactly what it was. It wasn't a terrible number. I think a panel is about $1,000, depending on how many breakers are in it. Maybe $1,250, and then it's maybe another $3,000 or $4,000 to install it. So it would, you know, the problem though is that new panel doesn't fit in the same hole as the old panel. So you got to rip all of it out. You got to put the new panel in. Maybe you got to fix the brick or the masonry around it so it fits in flush, or you could just surface mount it, which doesn't look great. You know, assuming that you're just replacing the panels, I think, you know, 5,000 a panel is probably about right if the wiring's fine.
Okay.
That's a big if, right? The wiring's got to be long enough to hit all the breakers and.
Okay.
Michael, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dorothy.
Okay. His fourth question is, what would you need to do to ensure the wiring in the conduit was okay?
You test it. So
Okay.
we look at the insulation. If the insulation is reasonably intact, then that would give us some confidence that the wire might be good. And then there's what you call an ohms test, where you put a low voltage charge on the wire, and you go around and find the other end of the wire, and you determine how much resistance is in that wire. And if the wire is good, you get a very low resistance. If the wire starts having it shows a little bit of resistance or a lot of resistance, or it's grounded to the conduit, or it's in water or something, it'll identify that, and then you can determine that wire is no good. Conduit is similar. The worry you have in conduit is it's rusting. In some places you can't see it. So on the exterior wall of the building, if conduits run there and that exterior wall has had a leak, and over the years that leak has caused the conduit to rust, it's very hard to determine that. You can do you can do some conductivity tests on conduit, but it's hard to really get a good answer. So a lot of the times it's just inspecting it. If you watch, if you can find it in runs and looking at it, if you can save the conduit, that's a big savings in cost. A lot of times though, the wire you're going back with, there's either more wire and it won't fit into that conduit, or the electrician is suspect of it and he doesn't want his new wire and old conduit. There's workarounds too. There's flexible, there's different types of conduit out there, but it could potentially save money. The bigger gauge conduit definitely is more expensive than the small 3/4 or 1 inch or 1.5 inch.
So I think you're getting into his last question. Was there a standard in the 1950s or 60s when our buildings
Oh,
were
yeah.
built that
Oh, yeah.
used thinner gauge wire? For instance, did they use a 14 gauge instead of 12 gauge? If it's 12 gauge, could we just extend the circuits in the classroom instead of replacing all the wiring?
Typically, the lowest gauge wire for a commercial setting is 10.
Okay.
If there's a code, the code's very prescriptive. The code's been there for a long time, the NFPA 70 code. I gotta believe in the 50s that code was there. I don't know for sure, but I can find out. It's pretty easy to find out. But I suspect that code's always been there, and that code prescribes the diameter, the wire gauge, and how that wire is to be run and how many you can pull in one particular piece of conduit or another. But I would tell you today, 12 gauge is acceptable in very few circumstances in a commercial setting. It's typically 10 is the minimum. Low voltage, 12 is perfectly fine, or 14. But in the voltage that you have in your school, it's generally expected to be 10. There may be circumstances where it's 12, but.
So do you think if it's 10, do you think that we can just extend the circuits in the classroom instead of replacing all the wiring?
Yes, you can. You can, if the wire's in good shape, we can extend and add circuits from that. You have to have a junction box, and you have to have a good ability to get purchase on a wire nut, or have there's other means, there's other mechanical ways to do it.
But
yeah,
what
you
would
could
be, yeah, sorry, what would be your recommendation? Because I understand that we can,
my
but what
recommendation, my recommendation would be your system is 70 years old and replace it. Start new. Start the clock over on your system so that you go another 70 years.
And that would be for the panels, but also for the wiring. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Replacing the wiring too? Okay.
Yeah, if you're doing either of Mike Richley's either his estimates, one was the minimum and one was the full deep. Both of those have completely new wiring and new electrical systems in my estimate. My number includes completely replacing your electrical system from the transformer in.
Okay.
Totally changing the voltage, changing the entire system, bringing it up to current code. Everything's new. Now, if cost is an issue and you want to, try to salvage, then we can talk about where we would salvage, what makes the most sense. But old wiring and old conduit typically is in pretty bad shape after 70 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
You're gonna get those that separation of costs.
Yeah. So you want to separate the power from the lighting.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. In my like for like, I do have down at the bottom a lighting estimate, a count per room, and a total quantity. When we went through all those furnitures, we did count light fixtures as well. I don't know that I counted every light fixture in every corridor, but I think I did. But we have a light fixture count, and I priced replacing every light fixture with an LED fixture. So, which I think is what he's after, right? Is to figure out what would it cost to replace all the light fixtures with LED. So I did that, and I think I can separate that pretty easily. So
You just send us something out with that. That would be great.
Can it be Monday? I'm here.
Yes, it can.
Sorry, Mike. I don't have my computer. I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry.
Monday
sir,
would
Terry.
be great.
Okay.
Michael, if we go to LED lighting,
Yes.
which is going to drop a substantial load on the
Yes.
building,
Yes.
do you think that our power requirements are going to be relatively the same with the new HVAC system?
I think the trend is you're going to use less power over time, and lighting fixtures are much more efficient. I I think if you go with a centralized system where you're having a boiler and a chiller, yes, your load will be less. You're waving, Judith.
Tim was
Oh,
saying, I thought he was
Tim's
leaving, so I
saying-
was waving goodbye if he wants to go.
Thanks, Tim.
And waving to-
Yes,
Thanks.
I think-
I'm sneaking out.
the Ohio School, OFCC, whatever it is, they have a recommendation on how much your building, how many amps your building ought to have. The OFCC has a recommendation. Their recommendation is in line with the National Electrical Code. You're using less energy than that right now, but you're really at that limit, right? You're close to your maximum load capacity on your electrical system. If you put in new LEDs, you put in lighting controls, so the light goes off when nobody's in the room, or the light level in the room's bright enough with the sun that you don't need the lights, or you don't need all the lights. Relatively common stuff today. Your electrical load will go way down. And if you don't have all those window units and you consolidate some of your air conditioning equipment, all those rooftop units are terribly inefficient. Your electrical load will definitely go down. And just the lighting fixtures themselves, your load will go down 30%. And you'll save, I mean, the light fixture replacement, if you do nothing with anything I ever tell you, replace your light fixtures with LEDs, you'll pay back is about 6 months. It's well worth it. You don't have to replace the bulbs every year. It's better light. You can do circadian lighting, so it's more natural. For the human, it kind of feels like, morning, afternoon, and evening. And it will save you a lot of energy.
So about that, I can hear the potential. It looks like it's a no-brainer anyway to switch the lighting.
Isn't.
But
really
if we're
isn't.
adding if we are adding HVAC in the gym, are we still going to come in a place where we have room to grow with our electricity for whatever new technology we need to have in the classrooms?
Well, if you're doing a new renovation, I would put in a system that gave you room to grow. No, if you don't use it, you don't pay for electricity you don't use, right? There is a bit of a demand charge because you have the potential to draw that the utility charges you, but you kind of find that sweet spot where you've got maybe 20 or 25% buffer to grow, but you're within a reasonable limit. But yeah, you could put the rooftop unit without any problem, especially if we knew that was something you wanted to do either as part of a renovation or in the future. And even if you don't want to add or expand your electrical system, we can tell you with your current system, after you remove some of the load, whether or not that system will handle a rooftop unit. But I suspect it would. If you're taking the lighting down, and maybe there's some consolidation, or even if you're just replacing like for like on the rooftop units, the new rooftop units are significantly more efficient than the ones you have there now.
Yeah,
So-
I'm thinking also about how there is a lack of, or there aren't enough outlets in the classrooms. And so I'm
Yeah.
thinking, are we going to have enough room to grow there?
Yeah, the plug load is generally pretty light. That's, unless they're plugging in those little space heaters, plug loads for computers and stuff that you normally use in a classroom is relatively light. It adds up, but it's still not that heavy of a load on a building. It's the lights and it's the air conditioning. It's, that kind of stuff, that refrigeration equipment, that's what really is a huge load.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, we had an electrical contractor visit with us earlier in the week. This electrical contractor has been around for about 50 years. They're a commercial contractor. They work in schools. They're currently doing a multi-million-dollar hotel project downtown Dayton. That's the kind of outfit they are.
Sure.
They looked at did a cursory look at our system.
Sure.
And their recommendation was that they would replace those secondary distribution, the old secondary distribution panels in both schools. And they would leave it at that. They looked, did a cursory look at the distribution panels, and it appears that most of those,
The old push-o-matics and all those,
Yeah.
yeah.
most of those are 20 amp circuits. The wire size supports a 20 amp circuit. And their experience has been that they don't expect too much problem with that. Now, one thing I will say is that they did distinguish between the Federal Pacific panels, which are a noted problem, but we don't have Federal Pacific panels, Pacific panels.
Yeah.
So, like I said, their cursory comment was, yeah, replace the secondary distribution panels, but really everything else that they saw was serviceable. They said they had parts in their warehouse to do it. So
Okay.
I just wanted to get your comment on that.
Well, I would tell you that if you're not doing any renovation and you're gonna, like for like, if you will, or you're gonna over time phase in replacing equipment, I agree with them. If you're not gonna do a renovation, if you're gonna do a renovation and you have the opportunity to replace your electrical system and reset basically the entire electrical system, and I bet he would agree with me if we talked. If you have that opportunity, take it and replace the electrical system in your future new school or your renovated school. And that way your school's really brand new. If, for all intents and purposes, maybe it's got, 60-year-old brick, but the building's basically brand new in terms of its mechanical, its heart and lungs. If you're not going to do anything, then I agree with him, replace the secondary distribution panels, because if they fail, you're out of business for a while at least, and not touch those push-o-matics, because of previously I mentioned to replace them, you're going to have to cut a bigger opening in the block, and the wire is going to not be long enough, and it's going to create more problems than it's going to solve. If you're going to add outlets, you might need to extend into a new panel somewhere and run new outlets on a separate panel and a separate circuit if you're going to do outlets in classrooms. But I agree with them. If you're not going to do any major renovations, if you're going to do the major renovation, then I would upgrade my electrical system to current modern electrical system and then kind of reset the clock. I
was going to say, maybe we should have you talk to those guys. I don't know that they would agree with you because the guy, because of what the one fellow said, which is, if you have money to burn, go ahead. But he was just like, it's really unnecessary, and it's really it's not gaining you. I mean, that was my understanding of what he said. And
even in a major renovation, if you replaced everything
else, we're
that would be my
if we do a
question.
renovation, and we have added load. Obviously, there may need to be new breakers, whatever. But if we're not adding significant load, his thought is, why replace something that is working, and in his opinion, has a long life.
Yeah,
It does. Wire has a long life. I don't know that it's 100 years though. So part of my concern would be not replacing it, and then in 10 years you start having issues, and it's going to become much more expensive. Anyway, if you've got the building closed and you're doing a major renovation and replacing everything else, to me it's a relatively small cost to pull new wiring in, run new outlets, new switches, new, conduit. I do understand his logic about if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Trust me, I do get that.
Yeah,
And there is a lot of that in me.
Well, I guess I'm also relying on his experience with what he sees in the field and the longevity of in similar situations.
I respect that opinion. I'm not saying he's wrong. I don't necessarily agree with it, but
Yeah,
I
understand.
I respect what he's getting at.
Okay, let's look at this list.
Okay.
The technology systems, IT, AV, security, access, and clock. Is the IT and AV, I'm assuming this is going to be, what is that all going to include? Actually, I should.
That's all your low voltage. So that's Cat 6 cable to all the classrooms, any wireless access point, any outlets you need to plug in for a computer. It's your fire alarm wiring, it's your speakers and your public address. It's your, if there's any audio video wiring from the teacher's desk to a projector. It's your access control. So if you put a card reader on the front door, or you have cameras for security, it's all that wiring. So it's basically all your low voltage wiring.
So all the technology that in the
all
classroom,
right.
the
All the
teachers
technology in the
wanna be able to
classrooms,
use.
correct.
Okay.
Everything that they need, and if you have display screens out at the street that talk about whatever's going on in the school that day or that week. If you have cameras on the outside of the building, if you have access control, the cards and the swipes or a thumb or, a retina, whatever your security system is, that wiring, the, PA, when the teacher, the principal wants to tell the students something, or it's, the buses are arriving or whatever it would also include any kind of emergency PA. It would include a security, so if you put in a code blue for an intruder, so instead of a fire alarm, an intruder alarm, it would include that wiring, that system.
I had a couple other quick questions, which aren't really on the list, but, and maybe this would come from Mike. Flooring per square foot.
Yeah,
Is there a number?
Yes, there is.
Would that be
It's
in Mike, or would that be in for you, or?
No, I did it. Now, Mike and I talked about it. So I took a number out of the OFCC website that gave a square footage cost for tile or flooring. And it was a relatively, it gave certain options. It could be a VCT, it could be carpet, it could be a number of different finishes. It's not terrazzo. And it's not like a wood floor, but there's a range of products that the OCC identified as a per square foot. So I identified that, and there was also a per square foot on the paint and a per square foot on the ceiling tile. And I identified that in my like for like spreadsheet down at the bottom, or maybe I think it's down at the bottom, but I can show you on the spreadsheet where it is.
Okay.
But we identified a cost per square foot for. And I also had a price in there for all the furniture, but that was counted. It wasn't.
Right.
And it included cabinets and.
Did it? That was another question.
It included bookcases. It didn't include built-ins. It included bookcases. I think Mike had a price in his number for built-in cabinets.
For cabinets.
Which there's probably some overlap there. So if you walk around your schools, you have bookcases. Some of them are built in, some of them are freestanding. I tried to count bookcases and say, okay, this class has got 10 of them or 8 of them. Some of them are low, some of them are, not really bookcases, but
right.
They're holding.
And the ceiling number, is that, since we're doing all this work in the classrooms,
It's tear down and replace. Tear down
Okay.
and replace, totally
Okay.
replace ceilings.
I want to bring up one thing, Mike and Michael. It appeared that you applied the $5 per square foot for ceiling replacement for the total square footage of the high school.
Yeah.
And there is no ceiling in the gym.
Right.
Which is 23,000 square feet. So we're talking close to $100,000 there.
There is definitely, I definitely overestimated that. As I was walking around out there the other day, I realized that there's several areas without ceilings. Now, you don't want ceilings in the gym, but you might want ceilings some places you don't currently have them. But that's again up to you. But yeah,
Okay.
my number's not really accurate there. It's probably a little high.
Okay. Another
And what
gym question. What is your feeling about air conditioning the gym? As I understand it, the ventilation system in the high school gym is judged to be inadequate. If we
Well,
had
it's just
adequate,
old.
huh?
It's just really old.
If we had adequate ventilation in the gym, considering that it would be used a few months out of the year, is that something that you would still recommend?
Boy, that is a great question. And I have that question posed to me, and generally for schools. Should we air condition schools? Because you're really only talking about a short period of time in the spring and a short period of time in the fall where it's really uncomfortably warm. And the rest of the time, it's perfectly fine without air conditioning. And you spend a lot of money for air conditioning. And the gym's the same way. You have the pushback I get when I start arguing with superintendents about that is they say, well, we want to use the school year round, right? Or we want to use the school gets used year round, maybe not every square foot, but a lot of it. And we want to be able to use it in the summer if we have summer classes, or if they change the rules and we have to go year round in school. And if the air conditioning if the gym's air conditioned, we can use it for other things like community things. And therefore, we want air conditioning. It's one of those, we just put air conditioning in one of the wealthiest school districts in the state just last summer in their gym. They never had it. They didn't have it for 50 years. And they finally, argued enough and put it in there. So
I'm going to mention.
The tightwad in me wouldn't do it, but I'm not. Go ahead.
I'm going to mention something really quickly here. I know that there has been a visiting athlete coming during one of the games that we had this past summer that experienced a heat stroke inside our gym, and they had to call the emergency services for him. And it would be one incident, but it's been also reported by many of our teachers that the heat can get really insufferable in there, even if it's not technically in the summer. From April on until early October, it can get really extraordinarily hot in there.
Yeah.
I just
the
had-
other issue is you get a lot of humidity potentially in there to damage the floor. I've seen that as well, where it's been so hot that they have humidity issues and the floor suffers. I don't know. It's a tough question. The trend is they're all being air conditioned now, Jerry. That's
Okay.
I wanted to just ask one more question on window dressings. So who puts that cost in?
window
dressings,
blinds.
Blinds and that kind of thing. Yeah.
That would be probably in Mike's number. I don't have it in my
Mike's.
number.
Okay. All right. It's 6:02. I heard tell that there was a hard 6 o'clock deadline.
Yeah, I have a Christmas party I'm supposed to be at, so.
Yeah, we should let you go. Well, thank you
Sorry.
very, very much. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime.
I think it's
Happy
very
to do this
helpful.
again. Happy to do it again.
Thank you,
And
Michael.
if you want, Judith, I'll give you a call. We can talk about whether you want me to come out there next week or the week after to do some of the gas sampling or whatever.
I think you should call Terry regarding
Okay.
that. Terry Holden.
Okay.
Yeah, because
I
she's
will
got the
do.
keys to the buildings. I don't.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right.
I'll do. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah.